Hello, everybody. I've got my friend and FitPro legend, Lincoln Bryden, on here to talk about all things education. When I was an educator, face to face, so many people would approach me of how they got to do that themselves. And so many people contact us here at FitPro about this very subject and also how they might create something that they truly believe in. Maybe they're thinking brand or something like that. So had to ask this guy, obviously, to come along and let us know all things about education. Lincoln, it's so lovely to have you back again. Thanks for joining us.
So lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Teresa. How are you?
I'm amazing and I'm super excited to talk to you. And to let everybody into a little bit of a secret, we're recording this on a Sunday because we believe very, very much in getting this information out to you. Because, like I say, so
Exactly.
many people ask us this very question. And actually, it's when you Google it, when you look for this information, it's actually really hard to
Hmm.
find anything sort of as clear as I hope that this webcast is going to be.
Right. Fingers crossed. No pressure then.
No pressure at all. You better deliver, particularly because we're doing this on a Sunday.
All
So
right.
let's talk first of all about becoming an educator. So you've been an
Mm-hmm.
educator for a long time, obviously being a presenter. I'm not going to mention the years, don't worry, Lincoln. So
No, don't.
what does it take to become an educator? And what's the first step on that pathway, would you say?
I think there's different elements of educator, whether it's being an educator in fitness. So when you're, you know, delivering workshops or training relating to fitness, or whether you're going down the education as in teaching 16 to 18 or teaching in a college or secondary school. I think with both pathways, you need to have some sort of credibility. So credibility can come from industry experience. It could come from taking a relevant qualification, a degree, etc., or it can be having a certain amount of time in an industry. So, for example, for me, I was teaching fitness relevant classes for 10 years before I actually started going into training to be a teacher. Okay. Um, and then the first actual qualification you can do is a level three award in education and training. And then that gives you a basic overview of how to work to a syllabus. So a lot of training, a lot of courses have a syllabus or course content. And then based on that course content, what the award in training allows you to do is to break that content down into um, a scheme of work and then into bite-sized chunks of lessons so that you can deliver that content in a way that learners can understand. And that's the sort of, I'd say, like the basic. And then you can go and become an assessor. An assessor will allow you to work for training organizations and be, those of us that have done our level two gym instructors award and you had someone, with a clipboard going around following you when you're doing your final assessment, you can actually be that person. And that's a useful qualification to have because, again, as an education provider or an educator, itself, you're going to have a final assessment for a course that you may write or a course that you work for. And you need to have an idea of how to give feedback in a constructive way that enables the learner to progress and develop. So once you've got your level three award in education and training and you've got your assessor's qualification, if you then want to take it further, you can do what is known as a level five, either diploma in education, or which is a level five, maybe 1 2 year qualification, or you can do a teaching apprenticeship where you're kind of learning while you're earning. And that's where you either work for a training organization or a college, and then you get released 1 day a week for a period of time to learn the nuances of teaching, lots more about learning and teaching theories and how to apply that in the classroom, behavior management strategies, designing an effective lesson, differentiation. So you're teaching people of a wide range of abilities and learning needs, and also to plan effectively and also use a wide range of resources. So it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that gives a brief overview about how to get into or transition from, teaching classes or teaching in a gym to
Yeah.
actually moving towards that education route.
Yeah, absolutely. I did assessor. I went into quality assurance as well, and you're
Hmm.
absolutely right. Sort of that in itself is a bit of a pathway, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it gives you further insights. But you can be an educator without being an assessor, can't you?
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So as an educator, your focus is always on helping others to
Hmm.
learn. So how does that approach differ from being a presenter? Because obviously you've presented for years as well. Um,
Yeah.
because some people, I think of a presenter as being different to an educator in my mind, but actually,
Right.
so I'll explain in just a moment because I think of a presenter as somebody up on stage, perhaps delivering, a session, and an
Yep.
educator being a little bit different, like, maybe in a, almost like theory and stuff like that. But
Okay.
actually, they do cross over hugely, don't they?
Yeah.
You have to present as an educator, and as
Hmm.
an educator, as a, if you're I don't know, basically you're having to engage with the audience. It's just a sort of, I guess, different content. So, what are your thoughts on differentiation between an educator and a presenter? I'm kind of curious.
Um, I'm going to be a little bit controversial and say I think
Okay.
that's changed over the years. So in
Yeah.
the early days of FitPro, I think a lot of the presenters were educators. Um,
Mm.
in those days where the sessions were 90 minutes, I think that although presenters were presenting choreography, there was a method behind the madness. So if you think of your Jay Blanicks and your Lexi Williamses, um, they were delivering content, but they would be talking about why they broke down the choreography a certain way. So that's where the educational element came in. I
Yes.
think from what I'm seeing currently, presenters are what you're saying. They'll get up on stage, here's my choreography. I'm going to teach you my choreography. You're going to have a great time. And then cheers, thanks for coming. I mean, that's a bit of a simplified,
I hear you. Yeah.
um, but I think that's kind of where it is. It's very much in the here and now. It's very much, as I say, presenters prepare their material. They will work to their music. They will deliver an amazing session. The people in the session will have a great time, and then they'll move on to the next session. I think an educator is definitely more of a long-term aspect to it. So there are
Mm.
specific skills of explaining the method behind the madness, the structure behind, the routine, or if you are delivering theory, you're delivering theory in a way that people that take part in your sessions can understand, process, and more importantly, in my opinion, apply it to their field. So whether it's taking it back to the studios, taking it back to um, the personal training floor, or just informing their practice. So I think that's the key difference for me from an educator point of view, and also using some of the skills I've talked about before to make sure that um, you're displaying it in a way that everyone um, in your session can actually understand and process what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree, and I know of so many educators that have got amazing presenting skills because
Mm,
it has to resonate with every single person in that room, doesn't it? And an
yep.
educator has a real, I think, a real skill as also what you're saying a presenter does. A presenter, like you say, in the here and now, perhaps, and you will have what I want. I'm going to deliver what I want to deliver. And
Yep.
like you referred to as an educator and knowing deeply the subject, the ways that you need to impact on people, but things like knowing how to adjust and adapt that sort of syllabus,
Yep.
learning checks. You know, all there's so many things to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's really funny to sort of think how they sort of cross over and overlap.
Hmm.
But I want to reassure people who think I can be an educator that they don't have to be the sort of person that can also step up on a stage and shine.
100%.
That's kind of where I'm going with that on this. So,
Yeah.
how does somebody know if they have what it takes to be an educator? And what do you think the key skills, someone who's going to be an educator, what are those key skills?
I think there's definitely an overlap in terms of the skills. I mean, in terms of presenting and educating, you do need a certain level of confidence. You need to be able to communicate. So if you're teaching classes, if there's an assumption there that you've obviously got some sort of communication skills that um, can be used. Um, I think in terms from an educator point of view,
Mhm.
there's patience. You need to have empathy in terms of the people that you're delivering sessions too. Um, you need to be able to or willing to develop the skills to what is known as scaffold learning. So you start off from a very um, simple base and then you layer on complexity of your delivery so that you can really transfer the knowledge to the participants. Okay. I think a lot of fitness professionals have the basic skills, and it's the willingness to change the focus from ourselves from a presenting point of view to be really learner centered. Okay, so delivering content that the people that are in front of you can, as I say, can absorb, process, and then apply. I think that's the key. So it's not just um, we've been in loads of lectures where, that's gone on for hours where people have gone blah, blah, blah at us, and then you've left the auditorium and gone, I have no idea what that was about. And I think nowadays with educators, it's transferring that information, but making sure from my point of view, that people can actually apply it because that's the power of the information that we can provide for them.
100%. I think it's the most important thing, isn't it? That knowing that someone walking out of that classroom has the confidence to know that they can truly
Mm,
apply it. That's really key, isn't it? And one of the things I really loved about being an educator is I found it so exciting being able to work with loads of different people and react into the room. And I actually
hmm.
felt that that was rather than thinking one size fits all, it was like, how can I make this work for everybody? So there's
Yeah.
impactful change. And I actually found
Hmm.
super exciting. And I think that as a presenter or I don't know whether it was a personal trainer and stuff like that, I'd started to use those skills rather than
Yeah.
thinking I'm going to hit you over the head with a hammer. You will like what I deliver because it's shiny and
Yeah.
bright and glittery.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how can I work with them? So I think that's one of the most amazing things about being an educator. So about long-term impact, how do you think
Yeah.
the role that you play will evolve over the next decade? For example, if you're an educator, not necessarily you,
Yeah.
but somebody who is about to enter into education, how would it evolve, do you think?
I think especially, I mean, if we're talking about the fitness industry, I think it's becoming a lot more evidence based.
Yes.
So I think from an educator's point of view, there's going to be a greater requirement, and you can see it when you're applying to become an assessor or a trainer for one of the awarding bodies. You're going to have to show evidence of your teaching credentials, whether it's that level 3 award in education and training, whether it's a diploma in education, or whether it's the teaching apprenticeship. And I think that that's going to be key. I think that learning how to deliver material to a wide range of individuals is going to be huge. There's a lot more of an awareness of neurodiversity and the challenges that presents to the individual, but also to the educator. So I know at college we do a hell of a lot of training around that.
Yeah.
Um, I think a greater awareness of assessment strategies, because you mentioned something earlier on that I wanted to come to. As a presenter, when you're up on stage, you've only got time. Your
Yeah.
learning check is, Is everyone okay? Yes or no? And then you wait for the answer, and then you hope everyone says yes, and then you move on, or you do like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and people do a thumbs up. Whereas as an educator, you've got to find different assessment strategies,
Mm.
learning checks. You've got to find, the difference between formative assessments as they're going along throughout a course versus at the end of the course, a summative assessment where you have the scary person following you around, with the
Mm.
clipboard in the gym. So there's going to be a greater awareness and for educators to know those skills, and also using technology as well.
Yes.
Technology is huge in terms of um, designing courses, which we'll come to later on, but also there's loads of tools that you can use now in the classroom to very quickly assess whether people are actually learning the content that you're delivering. So there's quite a few things that are wrapped up, I think, whereas say 10, 15 years ago, anyone could say, right, you know what, I'm designing a course and I'm going to deliver it. I think now people are becoming a lot more aware of what it takes to be a good educator, and they're gonna make sure that they do their due diligence to make sure that the person that's delivering the course or courses or the training has those skills that I've just mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. Technology is going to be key. But again, it's so
Mm,
exciting. And what I used to love as an educator as well is everybody's part of the room collectively. And,
yeah,
you use, don't you, people in the room to help with the sessions. And they might be like, oh, there's this
yeah.
app, and you're constantly learning and making, I think one of the most amazing things I learn as an educator was about, learning happens in a safe place, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
in embracing everybody. I just used to learn
Hmm.
so much. So long as there's clear boundaries in that room and
Yeah,
how
yeah,
it
yeah.
works, stuff, I think it's such an exciting place to see people sort of shine and collaborate and connect and stuff like that, rather than just you being the educator at the front saying you will do as I say and stuff. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's, again, going back to what you were saying in terms of a presenter, the focus is on you, which
Yes.
a lot of presenters love. But the focus is on you. You're the one that dictates whether people go left, right, forward, back, what they do with their arms and legs, etc. Whereas, when you design a session that's learner centered, yes, you can have your outline of what you're going to deliver, but then you create activities that the people do to embed that knowledge. Okay. And then you can actually get feedback. You can get live feedback as to whether that activity is working or not. And then if it's not working, you can adapt that so that the information is more effective. So it's very much
Yes.
more of a two-way energy as opposed to the person up on stage delivering a session where it just tends to be one way.
Yeah. And I think because I was an educator in the time when I was a personal trainer and was still teaching Group X, I actually think that it made me a better presenter, a better personal trainer, a better Group Xer. Because
Hmm.
I was suddenly like, oh, I can use these skills
Yeah.
this in this area as well. It's amazing. So, all right, in your long, successful career, Lincoln,
Thank you very much.
what are some key moments or lessons that you've learned that you feel that could perhaps help someone sort of on their pathway and their, to sort of see a kind of a journey ahead? Have you got some insights you could share?
Is this in education or in fitness?
Oh, in education, yeah, yeah.
Education. Um, I think it's what I liked about going into education is that, especially 16 to 18, is that they don't care about your background. So, I was when I got into it, I was, traveling around, presenting in all of these wonderful places, seeing different parts of the world, blah, blah, blah. But in that class, that meant that, at 8:30 on a Monday morning in
Yeah.
South London, they're like, yeah, but what can you do for me? Kind of thing. And I actually like that. I like that fact that you have to strip it back and it is about the people that you have in front of you. How can you make anatomy and physiology interesting for a 16-year-old that's, that's literally probably woken up an hour before and then they're plonked in front of you. So I liked that. I liked, I think in terms of key lessons, be prepared to always learn. You know,
Yeah.
every day's different. You can literally have the same class, but and they can be wonderful before lunch, and then they go on lunch and they have whatever they have at lunch, and they come back and they're completely different energy. And
Yeah.
again, you need to be adaptable, very much so. It's definitely a worthwhile pursuit, I would say, and especially as a lot of people in the industry, I believe, have got the necessary skills
Yeah.
to transition into education. And education is changing. You know, there's so many different learning theories, etc. But you know, if you can communicate, if you can be, you know, humble, if you can be empathic, then I think that you're three-quarters of the way there, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you role model those amazingly as an educator, always have.
No,
So,
thank you very much.
well, that's incredibly true. And he's not paying me for that compliment. Damn it.
And it is inspirational as well, you know, especially if you are going to teach that age group and you've got kids that, you know, possibly didn't feel that they can, you know, they had a certain ceiling of what their aspirations were, and you can provide opportunities, guest speakers, etc., take people on visits to see universities, and then all of a sudden someone says, you know what, I fancy going to university, and then 3 years down the line they come back and they speak to your current students about their
Oh,
journey. That's the you know, that's the nice, you know, and I'm, you know, now friends with people that I taught 15, 16 years
yeah.
ago, and they still say, you know, anytime you want me to come in, that's the nice part of, and that's where you build a legacy, you know, and you
Yeah.
help to shape, which we again we do in the industry anyway. You know, those of us that teach local classes, you know, you're influencing people's lives, and this enables us to do that on
Yeah.
a deeper level.
Yeah. And I was always surprised, not surprised actually. I was always very touched by learners who would come to me and say that they didn't feel they did well at school. They
Hmm.
felt misunderstood. They had actually felt, you know, um, yeah. And then they come into your session and then they're like, I didn't realize education could be like this, or
Yeah.
um, that I nervously applied for this and didn't think I could do it. And let's be honest, often learners come along and they don't realize how much they've got to learn. They go, "What? I
Yeah.
can do homework," you know, and
Mm,
and suddenly you take them through this journey, not just of learning the syllabus, but often it's a bit deeper, isn't it? Like you
yeah.
say, inspiring them to believe that they can do more, enabling them, empowering them, all these
Mm,
beautiful things. I just was like really honored to see. And it wasn't your work, it was just you create this safe space,
hmm.
some fun activities, and they're like, oh, it's not like school, is it? Did you
Yeah,
find that
exactly.
in your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think being at a college for the length of time, it's a lot of the reasons why a lot of people come to college is because they struggled with the school environment.
Yeah.
Okay. But also to the flip side, it's also coming around to letting these people know that, yeah, it's not school, but it's college. We still have our own boundaries. We're still going to teach you like a young adult. However, I mean, I'm a bit old school. So as long as there's clear boundaries, then
Yeah.
we can have the fun, we can do whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and it is breaking down, even like teaching adult learners, you know, a lot of adult learners have scars from when they were at school, and they bring
Yes.
those scars to the adult learning environment. So again, it's just breaking down those initial barriers and then finding out a way of delivering material and content that will enable them to flourish and thrive. And that's the challenge that I've always really enjoyed.
Me too, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful job that you expand yourself and expand others. I mean it's
Mm,
amazing. Can we dig into creating your own education courses? Because you've
yeah.
done that obviously over
Hmm.
loads of CPDs and stuff, and you even have an amazing CPD with us, the
Hmm.
Group Exercise Instructor Marketing Toolkit, which
Uh-huh.
giving you a little plug there. So
Well done.
I wanted to, obviously for me, being an educator, which we've spoken about, perhaps is, you know, like you said, there'll be a syllabus that's already been created. You often have to go, right, how am I going to teach this within? You mentioned things like scheme of work and lesson
Yeah,
plans,
yeah, yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
But often, as an educator, you're told what the content is, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
But I actually
Yeah.
wanted to explore, and we've had loads of people ask us about this, because I think they believe in what they've created. They know they're onto a good thing. They know they've got the credibility. But now, how do I go about creating a course? So let's get into that topic because
All
super
right.
interesting. So, all right, when you're developing a fitness course, what's your process
Yeah.
for designing content that's both informative and
Yeah.
inspiring?
Right. Okay. So
Mm.
before I do that, so
Yeah.
I think that's the, yeah, I'm going to say that's the mistake a lot of people do, right?
Right.
You know, they're very much, I've got this concept. People are gonna love it. I'm gonna create a course and share it with the world. Okay. And then they spend hours creating this course and it's wonderful. They've got all the bells and whistles. Then they
Yeah.
launch their page and then two people and a cat buy it and they think, oh, you know, I would suggest
Nice.
before you do that, that you go all the way back and think, right, is there an actual demand for this course?
Yes.
Okay. Do some, and again, in the sort of book that I've written and stuff, I've spent a lot of time in getting people to, it sounds real cliched and real businessy, but find out who your target market is,
Yeah.
what their pain points are, what solution do they need from you? Does your course, does your program, does your training solve a specific challenge for your target market? Because if it doesn't, it's unlikely that people are going to invest in your training.
Yeah. Let me get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you need to spend time and do the work and really try to narrow down who is it that I'm targeting. So, the group exercise instructor toolkit is pretty clear who the course is
Yeah.
designed for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's for marketing. So if you're a group exercise instructor that needs some help with marketing, then you might be interested in the course. Okay. But if you're not, then you won't. But that's fine. Okay. You can't design something for everyone. Okay. So that'll be the first thing. So let's assume that you've done your market research, you've decided that you are going to target men over 50 that don't do anything for their core. All right. So that's your target.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've done a little bit more research and found, okay, well, what elements do I need in my program that's going to really help men over 50
Yeah.
work on their core? Okay. You found out some more of their pain points. They haven't got time, they're busy. So you're going to do a 30-minute core flow program for argument's sake. All right. So that's going to be your thing. Okay. Your overall thing. The next stage is I call it the sadness to happiness model. So if you're going to design a course, there needs to be a transformation. So again, I always make a joke when I do my training. I actually don't like exercise that much. All right. So I'm not interested in your program. I'm interested in what can it do for me. All right. What are the
Mm.
stages that I need to go through to get from A to B? Okay. Because if you can articulate that, then I'm in. All right. So if let's just use the core flow as an example. And you're writing down, you're trying to do your outline, and you think, right, okay, well, stage one is actually teaching people how to switch on their core. Because how many fit pros do we hear say, engage your core? And we're like, well, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so right, okay, so we're going to teach people how to switch on their core. That's going to be the first thing. And then we're going to talk about posture and what does actually good posture mean? Okay, so there's going to be a module on that about, obviously lengthening through the spine and, tell people what ideal posture is and how that relates to the core. And then there's no point doing that stationary. We're going to then develop some very simple core movement patterns, which can be done standing, which can be done intermittently throughout the day. Once we get people moving, literally just riffing off the top of my head here.
Yes.
Once we get people moving, then we want to, especially with geezers over 50, flexibility is not the greatest, but then we can do some sort of education about why flexibility is important and what muscles to really focus on to enable us to move with control and have an ideal posture and have our core engaged. And then the last part of that is to then create a 10-15 minute daily core flow routine that people can take away. All right. So straight away, I've done my research,
Yeah.
I've got my end product, and now I've got my steps to take someone from um, an inflexible 50-year-old that's got no core stability to someone that will be able to do a daily 15 to 20 minute core routine. Okay. So once you've got that outlined, so you've kind of created that scheme of work that we were talking about earlier on, then with each of those specific steps, you then break that down a little bit more. So then there's a transformation in those specific steps, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of switching on your core, you want to then do some education about finding the core, talking about the core muscles.
Yes.
You want to maybe do some breathing and relaxing, how to breathe properly so that we're working the core. How you do core in stillness, so be very still in terms of that, then adding some movement, and then how to strengthen the core. And then once you've got that, that'll be your first module. And then you
Yeah.
can move on to the second one. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
So you,
yeah, sorry, it's just really interesting to hear you sort of say right at the beginning, about doing the market research, because you're absolutely right that often we think we're onto something really good, but we've got to make sure that it is going to be impactful.
I've
And
done it, I've done it myself. I've
right,
done it myself,
right,
because in the
okay,
industry, we're always looking for the next big thing.
yes, yes,
The industry is always looking for the next big thing. So it's doing that market research. Is there an actual demand for
yes,
what you perceive? And you might want to have some two or three test people say, look, I've got this idea.
right,
Would you go through this process with me? And then you can all of those modules that I was talking about, as they're going through that, you can think, actually, no, that actually doesn't work. Maybe if I tweak it this way,
yes.
um, then that would be a lot more effective because you're learning as you're going.
Yeah, that kind of feedback, and then they get the free
Mm.
course, right? So it's
Yeah, because the thing is that the course, the focus of your course and your training is the end user. It's not, I've got this great concept, I've got this great course, people are going to love it. It's this is going to solve a specific problem
lovely.
for for the end user. Okay, and
Yeah.
that increases the chance of people actually investing in it.
Yeah, my next question was actually going to be what kind of advice would you give them? I think that's probably the best bit of advice, making sure that it's actually relevant for the end user. But then,
Yeah.
what do you think sort of maybe some initial key steps? You've kind of focused on that, but how can they avoid common mistakes? You've mentioned some. Is there any other common mistakes that people make when creating fitness courses?
Again, there's a tendency to try to showcase how much you know. And I think the end user just wants the result, you know, they're not interested in, well, some people are, they want to know the nooks and crannies of how this hormone interacts with that enzyme to create that result. But again, I think the key as from an educator point of view is to translate difficult concepts into everyday language and everyday resources and respecting the fact that people, yes, they do want that end result, but if you're going to give some theory, do it in a way that's appealing, that's relevant, and also transformational as well.
It's a really interesting thing that I would find that there were some courses you would almost, I'm going to say, I'm speaking to you as a friend and as an educator, and people listening in, hopefully they understand it was almost as if you were being tested at time
Hmm.
by learners to see, did you know?
Yeah,
No. And
yeah,
what I think is really important, as you say, is to have content that they can digest. but
Yeah.
really you need to know the stuff behind it. So for example, let's say
Yeah.
I've done something and it's been a little silly song, let's say.
Hmm.
They want to know that you've got the credibility and the depth of knowledge. So I learned quite early on that sometimes you'd be sort of exposed to quite a difficult question quite early on
Yeah.
by some people. You'd soon work out who they were, and they just
Yeah.
needed reassurance that you had that credibility and depth of understanding. And it wasn't for me. I learned a way of being able to perhaps then use those people at times to help with
Yeah.
certain things. But also the key thing I learned is never BS. You know what BS
Hmm.
stands for.
Yeah.
Don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you don't know the answer, say,
Just
that's
say.
a great question. Do you know what? I don't know right now. I'm going to do some research.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's made me think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Or I did know it. Because for me, sometimes you're right. It's making it digestible for everybody in the room,
Hmm.
appealing to all those people. Because some people have got those in those minds, haven't they? That want to know the depth, but you can
Yeah.
refer them to something or to read something, or you've got something. Because otherwise, you can lose
Hmm.
the whole room, can't you? Because you're now,
Yeah.
I'm going to
100%.
say, geeking out with this one person over here.
Yeah.
And I would
Yeah. Yeah.
find that it would be almost a test. So when we're talking about common mistakes and stuff, one of the things I would say to another educator is don't get bogged down in those proving yourself.
Hmm.
Acknowledge and say, it's such a great question. Actually, I don't know the answer to that. I will find
Yeah.
out for you after lunch, or and then go back to it. And I also learned this thing from another educator, which was called the car park. And I used to draw like a little
Right.
car and I'd park questions. Or if you know your content, you go, that's such a great question. Actually, tomorrow we cover that in,
Yeah.
and it's
100%.
it's it for me, it's really knowing your content, knowing that sometimes you will be tested, but if you don't
Hmm.
know, it's absolutely fine and you can dig a bit deeper. That would be my
Yeah.
advice on common mistakes.
No,
Certainly learned that
definitely.
quite
I
quick. Yeah.
just, yeah, just want to go back to because about, the process of starting. I'd say also
Yes.
have a framework or have a system, have something that's yours. Again, there's so many. Um, let's just use menopause at the moment. That's the buzzword. Okay, so say for example, not you, an instructor feels that I've got this program that's going to be menopause wellness. Okay, the question straight away, well, how's that going to be different to all of the 4,862 programs that are out there at the moment? But if you've got your own framework or your own system, then that's unique to you. And then that system forms the basis of your training. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
there's loads of resources that will help you to create that framework as well. And then other advice as well, while I'm here, is to definitely not overload, which goes back to what you're saying. So have bite-sized lessons. So if you're going to have online, have online videos that are no longer than 5-10 minutes, because attention spans are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And definitely having a learning check or an activity at the end of each section helps people embed that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And those brain breaks, we all need them, right? It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
important.
definitely.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to our next one. Well,
Go
how do
on.
we remain, how do we make sure our courses remain relevant in an ever-evolving industry? Say, for example, you create a program a year ago, and it's online. What happens with that, for example? How does, when we're talking about the menopause, for example, as a
Yeah,
topic, and you said there's 4,000, da 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 da, it is, people will be interested in how you deliver it, but how do you stay on top of the subject matter and how do you make sure your course doesn't stay stuck sort of almost statically
yeah.
from a 10-year ago course type thing? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and it's good that, I mean, we're using menopause as an example, but that's an example of an instructor that's specializing in that field. So if you've decided that that's your speciality,
Yeah.
then you can start searching evidence-based conventions, webinars, podcasts, and research to make sure that the information that you deliver is suitable for your clientele. Another thing about courses really can be, if you design it properly, the starting point of your participant's journey. So you can have a course, and at the back end of that course, you can have a Facebook group or a small charge membership where you can have a monthly topic of the month, which goes into the latest research. Or, if you find a useful article, you can say, hey guys, this is what I found, and then have a discussion around that.
Yes.
Or you can just use that information to update and redo your course content, and then have a relaunch in a year's time. So you can have
Nice.
your course version 1, version 2, version 3.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And that's what we do with our courses is reach out to
Yeah,
the presenters and say, is it still relevant?
yeah,
And sometimes we'll just add there'll be a new module added, or we swap
yeah.
out a module and we contact the old learners to say, look, this is where we're at now and stuff. And yeah, you
Hmm.
do relaunches and stuff. So with all of this, what's the pay potential? Potential is a very loose word, but I mean, I think, let's be honest, creating a course and stuff, you need to know that there's actually a need there. It's
Yeah,
got to be something I think that resonates deeply with you, that you know that
yeah.
you're credible in. We often do it for passion, don't we? And vision
Hmm.
and stuff like that. But of course, the business side of it, of course, you've done your market research, you'd hope it'd be effective. But what is the pay potential for some of the courses?
It's potentially limitless, especially now with technology, because again, the danger would be to look at the course as just a course,
Right.
but if you design the course well, and you have that framework, then that course can also be a book. That course could also be a speaking topic. So you can approach FitPro and say, look, I've got this wonderful framework for, the menopause. I think it's really new and groundbreaking. Can I do an article for FitPro magazine, to increase credibility? The structure of your course could be the framework for your podcast. It could be a membership that you sell for instructors. So the actual earning potential
Yeah.
isn't just pay X amount of pounds for the course
Yeah.
or CPD. It's all the other stuff that you can earn and develop from it. And that's the reason why I'm a big fan of creating a framework that's unique to yourself. So I know it's
Yeah.
a bit of an on the fence answer, but the opportunity, if you do all the groundwork, find out, make sure there's a demand, make sure that your course solves specific problems, for whether it's for instructors or for the consumer. And if you structure it in a way that's transformational, takes people from that sadness to happiness phase, you really can use. And the good thing is, you create it once, and then you're just repurposing it in different modes. So as I say, having the book there is another way that increases your credibility, but it provides another way for people to digest your information. And then
Mhm.
once you do that, then you can, as I say, have that membership where you can stay updated with the current topics, and you can say, listen, look what I, and then you could do updates. Sorry, I'm off on one now.
No, I
Then you
love
could
it. No,
you
no, no,
you
no,
yeah,
absolutely.
you can do updates. You can do like a little video, 5-10 minute video. Listen, I've just read this research. This is how I think it will impact us as instructors or
Right.
consumers in this topic moving forward. And that just adds to the value. You could even do, which Rachel Holmes does really well, actually, with her modern Pilates, not modern Pilates, fitness Pilates,
Fitness
sorry.
Pilates, yeah.
She has a seminar at the end of the year, so she has a convention, and Cherry Baker does exactly the same thing. So the income potential is limitless, but it's just widening that scope
Yes.
of, it's not just the course. The
Yeah.
course is really just the starting point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you can just think of creating this
Yeah.
here. What I love is that you didn't mention that you've got a book. Please tell us very quickly.
So the book that I wrote is Prime, and it's a 5-step model to helping group exercise instructors create their own courses. So it goes through the planning stage, which is looking at yourself as an instructor, identifying your target market. What is it we actually do? Because we're not just group exercise instructors. We help people achieve, solve a specific problem. We look at their pain points. What is it they're struggling with? And then what do we do helps to overcome that. And then there's a step process. The second part is the remodel of looking at how to create your own course or training. And I've got sort of an acronym that you work through in order to break it down. And then you test it. So again, you test it with 2 or 3 people just to make sure the concept works. If it doesn't work, that's not a problem. You just sort of go back one step and then just adapt it. And then we look about marketing and evolving it. So it's again transformational. It's a stepped process that helps people through that designing a course process.
I do love that you didn't bring it up. I love that. But and actually, the next question I have prepared for us is about what sort of tools and resources you might well recommend to help with creating their own course. Of course, I think that's a great resource. So that was a nice segue into this. So can you think of any other things that you've used or you've known other people have used to help with that creation and knowing how to model things out?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously from a designing point of view, you can use Canva. So Canva is a tool where it's got loads of templates for handouts. You can even do presentations in there. It's amazing. We're on a Zoom, so in terms of filming content, I think Zoom's great. In terms of housing the content, there are places such I use Thrivecart, which is really good in terms of allowing people to buy your products, but also on the back end, it links to the membership site. So it has all of my videos and handouts and other resources. There's Teachable, there's Thinkific. There's loads of tools, you can use AI. I'm going to be controversial again because again, someone might be watching this and think, "Oh my God, this is going to take so long." Blah blah blah.
Yes.
But you can, if you're smart with AI, you can save yourself a lot of time asking key questions, even if it's just to get your thinking juices flowing. It's invaluable, I would say, and it's out there. You'd be silly not to use it, okay? Because again, I know that I'd say the danger would be to just rely on AI. I think the most effective way is human, AI, human. So human, we're inputting, AI churns out what AI churns out, and then you still, from the human side, got to make sure you go back in and think, okay, I like that, not too fond of that. I'm going to adapt to that. So definitely don't be scared of AI because it will save you lots of time. And also you can use, I mean, Google Docs, Microsoft Forms in terms of doing your research. There's loads. There's loads.
Yeah,
Pen and paper is okay as well. Just nothing wrong with it. You know what I'm saying?
Now that is controversial.
Sorry.
No. I know you sort of said about Canva, and I mean we have a paid version of Canva, but it's it can be free. Zoom can be very cheap. A lot of these things can be really, really cheap. For example, we're recording on Zoom. We'll strip them, we'll put it on this YouTube, put it on a blog, but you can trim off the audio just to go to SoundCloud. So that's your podcast
100%.
taken care of. So there's a lot of things. I think for me, one of the things is you learn so much. The other resource I would say is you learn so much from each other, right? You've just said some things I've never even I mean, I'm like, which one was that? There's some things in there, right? We're all constantly learning. And I think one of the great things when you're an educator is reaching out to others and saying, this is, have you got any thoughts on this? How could I do this better? And stuff like that. It's quite, I think learning from how other people do things, it doesn't mean you're going to replicate it and you're not going to strip their content, but you can go, I really like the way they've approached that. that looks a bit like how I might like that to land and stuff.
And there's nothing wrong. Again, if someone's watching or listening to this thinking, oh my God, Lincoln, it's too much technology. There's nothing wrong if you have a space, whether it's a studio or a village hall, to test out your concept with a group of people on a face by face basis with a flip chart and some board markers,
Absolutely.
and just doing it that way. So the important thing I think with courses is there a demand? Have you got a framework? And have you got a step-by-step process of people achieving that transformation? If you've got that,
Yeah.
then as I say, one of the most successful people that I've worked with is a self-confessed technophobe, but because she's very good at what she did during COVID, for example, she had over 150 people turning in each month to her online training, you
Yeah.
know. So the technology isn't the most important thing. The tools is not the
Yes.
most important thing. It's the message that you deliver. I think that's got to be
I
key for me.
could not agree more. I think that's really nice you said that actually, because so many of my, educations, there was technology, but a lot of the time they were just writing on bits of flip chart and they were
Yeah,
this and they were, that you can be so creative, can't you, with just simple things and stuff. You could,
yeah,
you know, even if it's, I used to have a bag of resources of this, that, and the other, you've
yeah.
got a skeleton over there, you've got a this, you can build up a toolkit, can't you, of
Hmm.
particularly with face to face. And I know we've talked quite a lot in this circumstance of online, but face to face education can be so impactful. We just know that
Yeah.
there's limits on how, that can't, your course can't be sold when you're asleep
No.
if it's face to face. So
Yeah.
you could do it face to face and have an online offering as well.
Hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I've got one more question for you, please.
Go on
Would
then.
you measure effectiveness of courses? And also, do you gather feedback? I mean, I remember you saying sort of in Prime, there's a moment where you almost take a step back. What
Yeah.
For me, feedback's so incredibly important. We talk about, don't we, in education about learner checks and stuff. So that's
Yeah.
kind of feedback we get all the time. The feedback you're seeing in the room if someone's engaging, so it's a constant thing. But actually, I'm
Mm.
talking about the creation of courses, because do you wait till you've launched it all and then you get feedback and go, well, module 3 was absolute rubbish, and you're like, huh? So when do you
Yeah.
ask for it? What do you do with it? What are your thoughts, on developing future courses, I suppose? Yeah.
Okay, so if you're looking to go down the course route, I would definitely do what is known as a beta launch, or a soft launch, where you, again, get two or three people saying, look, I've got this concept, got these modules. Um, and again, it could be a marketing thing. It's going to be, when I launch it properly, it's going to be X amount. But if you help me on the beta launch, I'll only charge you this. And if there's going to be like a monthly commitment afterwards, I'll keep it at that reduced rate. And there are certain people that, yeah, I'll do that. I'd love to help. And so you're getting feedback each time. So if you're teaching a module, you can stop, say, okay, guys, again, in education, we do the what went well, even better if, what was good about this? What did you enjoy? Oh, yeah, I really liked when you did X, Y, Z. Okay, what didn't go so well? I flipping hated it when you went A, B, C. Okay, cool. So what can we do next time? Maybe next time consider doing it this way, and you think, right, okay. So then that that's going to be a lot more effective than if you just launch straight away. Okay. And then you do that for each module, so after each module, after each training, then you'd get that immediate feedback from people. You could even, if it's online, you can set up a Microsoft form or a Google Docs where they can, send you that information if they'd rather do it that way. But I'd always get feedback during that journey. So the Prime that I ended up with was the third version of,
Ah,
yeah, yeah. So that wasn't the original acronym. So I changed it and I adapted it. And I'm glad I did, because it was then more relevant to the target market. So that's a case in point. Um,
interesting. Yeah.
and then with the book, because then talking about what I was saying, that the book can be a course. So I did the course off the back of it. And then off the back of that, then I had a Facebook group where we met on a weekly basis. We do sort of group coaching, and I was getting feedback from the concepts that I was teaching in the course and in the book to see if it was actually relevant, whether it made sense. And the good thing about that, if there was anything that needed clarification, then I was able to jump on a Facebook Live or Zoom, because I talk about frameworks, and that was a bit of a concept that some instructors found difficult. So I thought, you know what, let's just do a training on frameworks and we can talk about all the different ways. And that again, that was invaluable. So again, I think we can get drawn into the online dream. I'm going to create a course and then, 8 million people are going to buy it and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to get all of these notifications. But there's still an element of you that's part of this process. And I think that going all the way back to being an educator, you still want people to know that you're an educator, and that's where the skills of communication, of empathy, or you don't get that, okay, let me think of another way of explaining the concept that enables you to demonstrate your educational prowess, which will help them embed the concepts that you're trying to teach in a much deeper level, which will then make your course more effective.
You're right. It's as you've been talking through this and stuff, I know you sort of done this for a long time, Lincoln. I was kind of thinking that one of the lovely things for people embarking on becoming an educator or creating their own courses is you have basically given them a load of ideas that not only can they become an educator or have their own course, but so many of these other things make that person become truly relevant. And it's about
Mm.
credibility, but also all these other things that you're embedding makes people then start to go, oh, that's almost like a spokesperson. That's almost a leading authority on that. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of the time, particularly when, we have people asking about, could I do it? Could I create courses? It's a bit like, oh, can I? Can I?
Hmm.
I'm not, people don't know me type thing. And all of
Yeah,
these steps will actually make people sort of see them as that educator and like
yeah,
authority in that space. And I think that's comes back to my bit, which you really want to be teaching courses that truly resonate with you.
yeah,
And that you don't, because some people might go, well, menopause is the whole thing, but it may not be something necessarily you're that interested in. So I think it's really
yeah,
important to
exactly.
stay in your lane, um, you know, diversify a little bit, but it has to resonate deeply with you, have a deep
Yeah,
understanding in it, have a passion to do it. And then that's only going to make your sort of your brand as a person, your business
100%.
grow, and then you'll be
Yeah.
able to build off of that. So there's been some top tips. It's almost like you know this stuff inside and out.
I'm always learning. There's one
We're
thing I have learned is that you're always
right.
learning, always learning.
Always learning. Yes, my God. I thank God that we have the opportunity to do that. And thank you.
Mm,
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and
absolute pleasure.
wisdom. I really appreciate it. Like I say, some people have asked us about this with a almost like, ooh, how do I go about it? Is it right for me? And I think that's answered so many things. Is there anything we've missed that you wanted to cover off in this chat, Lincoln?
Um, Not really. I think the key thing is, be authentic, be true to yourself, because again, in terms of where education is going to go in the next few years, I think people are going to be, um, they're going to be drawn to people that are authentic, that speak their truth. And then going back to the question of, well, can I do it? If you're true to yourself and you tell your story, you're the only one that's had your story and your journey into the world of fitness. So, yes, you can find your path in that whatever niche you want to go down. And in terms of credibility, credibility comes from this is where using social media in the right way, giving content that's educational, and again going back to that planning stage of, well, what is my target market's pain point? If you keep posting content that addresses the pain point, then people get to see, oh, this person actually knows what they're talking about. Oh, I can actually resonate with them. I want to find out more about what they have to offer. So this is where the online social media, sending out regular email, building up your following, as it were, can be really, really useful and really important. So that's really the last bit that I want to say.
Lovely. I appreciate that. And I think it's important, isn't it, that so things shouldn't always be behind a wall of payment.
Hmm.
A lot, when you have, when you're talking about things and stuff, there can be some educational content that you're giving out just free, because that's where you show your credibility, isn't it? And stuff.
Yeah.
I have to wrap this up and say, I really loved our chat, but and then you finished it up with the statement of being authentic. And obviously, as you know, authenticity is like my most favorite thing
Mm.
in the whole world. So good, big tick for that one. Thank you. Would you like people to reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I think just send me an email. So lincolnbryden@gmail.com. So if you've got an idea or a concept that you want to talk through, if you want to help, thrashing it out, identifying the stages, then yeah, I'd love to help, because there's space for everyone, and if I can do my little bit to help, written quite a few courses, so I've written a couple of books as well, so I can help with that as well. So yeah, please don't be scared, reach out.
Thank you, Lincoln. I really appreciate your time today.
You're very welcome. Speak soon.
Speak soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Cheesy wave now.